Hi, this is John Illsley from Dire Straits, spelled Straits, and you're listening to what is it? The brutally majestic podcast.
Okay. That's gonna be the best one yet.
I've just changed the title for you.
Yeah, please.
That'll teach you to spell our name wrong.
Hello, John.
Hello. Can I just ask, first of all, who spelt Dire Straits wrong?
I don't know.
What? Who spelled Dire Straits?
Who spelled Dire Straits wrong?
Where?
Come on, own up. Who was it?
On the calendar? Oh, Bruce! Bruce!
Wow!
Fails.
Bruce, you're fired.
I'm fired. That is awesome.
No, it's not.
No
awesome.
mercy, John. I like it.
It's dreadful.
John, I sure hope that you make him pay this entire interview. Like,
Well,
if he asks you a question, say, well, can I even trust you? Because you don't even know how to spell the band name.
I don't know how. I'm not sure I can trust him with anything.
Not at all. Well, thanks for joining us, John. I really appreciate it. As you can tell, that's my partner, Kris and Riina.
Hello.
Hello.
Got a busy
Very
day.
nice to meet you, John.
Hi. Hello, Bruce.
I look at the attitude in the voice. Hello, Bruce.
Yeah, you're not forgiven yet. Let me put it that way.
Before we get...
Is that a bass guitar behind you?
Oh, this is my recording studio. I have Fender PJ and a Fender Jazz right behind it.
Very nice.
The Fender Jazz is a 94 American, and I put in the DiMarzio bars in there. It's real.
Why would you do that?
Because I tuned down quite a bit, and my old pickups, the wire, I don't know what happened to them, but they stopped working really.
Okay.
They had to be rewound because they were so old, and they toured around so much and had so much beer on them that you know.
You're not supposed to drink beer when you're playing a bass guitar. You know that, don't
Really?
Did you heed that
Why
advice?
not tell you that?
Did you heed that advice on the road?
Well, funny enough, I found that I need both hands to play bass guitar, but obviously you do it differently, obviously.
I played in an alt rock band, and it was part of our stage show was doing beer bongs on stage with fans.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
okay. That's not got much to do with music, is it? That's just got to having a good time.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's funny.
Sorry.
But that's a great segue, John. I mean, that's a lot of what this book is about, My Life in Dire Straits. How did you, I mean, obviously you've been keeping notes through the years. What made you decide to just jump in and put this together now?
Very good question. It's not easy to answer that. I was approached by an agent, a literary agent, who came to see one of my shows. And I talked a bit about, the band in between the songs and all the rest of it. And she said, why don't you put this in a book? Because actually it would make a good read. And so after various discussions with her, I agreed to do it. And I really enjoyed the process, actually, of just reliving the whole thing, from the beginnings of being in Leicestershire and being in a simple kind of household and then the first meetings with Mark until we ended up in sort of stadiums about 15 years later. And I just thought it'd be very interesting to share this journey, for want of a better word, with other people who, because, the band was very well known, if you like, obviously, all over the world. So I figured there was a lot of people there might be interested to see actually what it was like being in that situation.
Right. What was it like revisiting those memories? And I mean, because some of them are way back.
Well, it was a bit difficult sometimes because, as we know, the memory does fade a little bit. But so I had to check a few things and had a few conversations with people just to make sure I got the things right. But it was quite interesting piecing it all together. So I did it very chronologically. If you've had a look at the book, it's it's early beginnings and at home and all the rest of it, and my first interest in music, and then the build up of playing in different bands and then meeting Mark, and success for Dire Straits came quite quickly, actually. So that was an interesting moment, and I think that I think people will find that quite fascinating to read about that and how it happened and why it happened.
Right.
Well, in the excerpt I read this when I was preparing for this interview, it talks about you like kind of coming home, you're hungover, and and you get home.
Me, really?
Yeah, and there's Mark sleeping on the floor. You know, there's cigarette butts and beers everywhere, and he's got a Gibson Les Paul, or he's sleeping with his guitar.
Yeah.
And that to me really kind of signified, because like when I was growing up, like my brother was a huge Dire Straits fan, and I became one later in my life. I was pretty young when, you know, a lot of your hits were out.
Yeah.
But my brother would constantly play Dire Straits. Like it was something that happened all the time. And I always thought of Dire Straits as like this killer guitar band, you know? No offense to the rhythm section or anything like that, you know, but
no offense taken.
But it was just such a killer guitar band, but not in the way that every other band was a guitar band at that time.
Right.
Like everyone was like a shredder and there was distortion and hair, and Dire Straits was just grooving.
Yeah. Well, I think you could, basically the band discovered it had its own style quite early on, and it was based around songs, and the rhythm section with me and Pick was very important, I think, in creating that sort of what I call the engine room of the band. And it happened very quickly. It happened very naturally with Pick that we played together like that. And Mark's playing at that point in time was very different from anybody else's I'd ever come across. And he didn't need to distort things and, you know, pick the guitar with his teeth and stuff like that. And the interesting thing about Mark, he's left-handed.
Yeah.
But he plays the guitar right-handed.
Really?
I didn't know that.
Because I was like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Were they flipping the videos around?
So basically it meant he had because he's left-handed, he had a lot of strength in his left hand. So I think that helped. And he's spoken about this in interviews, so I'm not saying anything out of line here. He found that he could get a lot of vibrato on the strings because he had a very strong left hand.
Oh, interesting.
And I think that's probably where a lot of that guitar sound, guitar technique comes from. Yeah.
Very interesting.
So like when I read that part though, and he's sleeping with the guitar, is that something that the band kind of did? Like, I don't mean literally, but
Jesus.
No.
You mean we had no choice, you mean?
No, I mean, like, was the entire band that dedicated to their instrument where, you know, they literally slept with it in their hands?
Well, you know what it's like. Do you know what it's like sleeping with a 61 Jazz?
I do.
Yeah, okay. Well,
I've slept in the back of the van with it in its case many times.
I don't, but no, I think that I just happened to catch him in a moment where, you know, I got in about 8 o'clock in the morning for all sorts of reasons I won't go into now. But and I was making some tea in the kitchen. I turned around and I saw this figure lying on the floor, sort of with a couple of bottles of beer next to him and an ashtray, which was very much overflowing, to say the very least. And he was fast asleep. And of course, he woke up when I was banging around in the kitchen. And I don't know, we fell into a conversation and it just seemed very warm straight away. I just warmed to him straight away. And I think he warmed to me straight away. So that was the beginning of a very long and enjoyable friendship, I must say. And it still exists today, thankfully.
Heck yeah. Riina?
Sorry.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, that's not something a lot of bands can say. You know, that after decades and decades of being together, that they're still super close.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I don't know about other bands, really. I do know that other bands have problems. I mean, you know, it's not all plain sailing. You know, sometimes bands just turn up at the stage in different cars and play together and then get in the cars and go home separately. So, but we weren't like that, I have to say. We did actually stick together and enjoyed each other's company very much. And so it was kind of like a family environment. I'm not making it sound all sort of lovely and lovey-dovey and all the rest of it, but we had a mutual respect for each other, I think, which has lasted the test of time, especially with Mark and I. And all the other musicians that joined us, I think, picked up on that vibe that he and I put out about, what we were trying to achieve. And I have to say, we were pretty strict as far as, the live gigs were concerned. We weren't throwing beer over each other like some people I know. But we had a serious amount of fun. Don't get me wrong. I mean, if you read the book, I think you'll pick that up. I mean, I'm not saying there was no saints in the band. Let's put it that way. But I mean, we knew that at 8:00 in the evening we had to be there, ready to play in front of how many ever people it was, and we stuck to that rule. After the gig, we'd go back to the hotel. Some people would go off and do stuff and all the rest of it. But the rule was you were there on stage the next day, 8:00, stone cold sober. That was the only rule we had.
A good rule.
I didn't want to get into everybody else's habits.
Oh, no.
It's dangerous territory.
Right.
Is Riina frozen? Rina's frozen.
Riina is frozen.
She's just a statue right now.
I thought she always looked like that, but because she has been frozen for a while, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was so engaged in the conversation, I didn't notice.
So
well, that's you better tell Rita that yourself, I think.
Now, in terms of the actual physical process of writing this,
she's gone now. You see, you've upset her.
She'll be back.
Okay,
she's in Finland.
She's where?
In Finland.
She's in Finland.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Okay.
The physical process of writing this book, was this something that you did alone, or did you tell someone your stories and have them write it? How did that collaborative part work?
Oh no, I have to admit, I had to have somebody that would put down my endless ramblings about this, that, and the other, and put it in some kind of order. But it was a collaborative process, which I found very engaging. He and I had the same sense of humor, and he knew. The great thing about him was he knew nothing about the music business.
Wow.
So he had a lot to learn, which was kind of fresh for me. So I had to explain things. So I had to sort of big up on all the things that I thought I knew about. And it was a great experience, but it's very much my voice. And he really captured that. But I'd still be writing it now. I mean, if it was me just doing it, because I think you need somebody to pick up on your conversation. And we spoke endlessly on Zoom for all the way through lockdown, and so lockdown was quite a convenient moment actually in England. So I got this thing done, but it's very much me. It's very much my voice that he captured, and we went back over it backwards and forwards, and I took things out, added things, and so I'm very happy with the outcome. And he's an old friend, so we understand each other quite well.
Nice.
That's great.
Riina, you're back.
Welcome back.
I'm here again.
Are you really in Finland?
Yes, I am here in Helsinki, or Espoo, the neighboring.
Oh, there you are.
Huh?
You know the book is going to be translated into Finnish?
Is it? Who is it going to be doing the translating?
Oh, I can't answer that. I don't know, actually.
I just wanted to put you on the spot.
I presume some Finnish person.
Right. Probably good guess there.
But hey, let me just get back to the whole subject of the book and the writing process. And you said in the beginning that you had to have some conversations with other people to just make sure that things actually happen the way that you think that they did. Did you come across situations where people were like, no, dude, no, this is not at all how it was? Well,
the principal person I spoke to about it was Mark, obviously, because, he and I did the whole, the part, we did the road together sort of thing, or I think they called it a ride. So I had to sort of talk to him about it a little bit in order to get some of the tone right, because it's really about him and me, and it's about the Dire Straits story, which of course he's extremely relevant in. And so, I needed to have his kind of input and also acknowledgement that this was going to work. So he very kindly wrote the foreword for the book, which I think is just totally brilliant. And so, you know, it was a lovely thing to do. It's kind of, I was sort of celebrating it in a sense, the whole kind of thing, you know, because it was when I look back on it, it was a pretty extraordinary thing to do and get away with, really. I mean,
Yeah.
and you know, it took us to all sorts of places in the world, meeting all sorts of incredibly interesting people. I mean, having Bob Dylan play a little concert for us in a hotel room in LA was pretty
Crazy,
mind-boggling, really. I mean, you can't really imagine that now, but at that point he was was into it, and just meeting people on the way. I mean, it was just amazing. You know, Jerry Wexler doing the album, the Communique album, Roy Bittan playing keyboards on Making Movies, and these were really fabulous moments. Playing with Eric Clapton at the Mandela concert, you know, Eric Clapton on rhythm guitar.
right?
He's quite good, you know, on rhythm guitar. He plays a mean rhythm guitar, does Eric?
Who's your favorite friend from the road?
Who's my favorite friend?
Yeah, like one of those people like who you've met, who made the biggest impact or just completely dropped your jaw or whatever made you remember the most.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure who I could. I think probably meeting Bob was a sort of pretty seminal moment, really, at Bob Dylan, because you know, having grown up with him and, you know, really tried to get him, you know, and understand him and just live with his music, his world was, and then for having striding over and saying, "Hey, you got a good sound there, you guys."
Right. Mind blowing.
It's like, that's a good place to start. But I think that was pretty intense. And then Mark sort of formed a relationship with him for a bit, you know, and he still does, I think. So that's fairly ongoing. I mean, who did we bump into? Billy Joel was a remarkable person to join us on the stage at Madison Square Garden. Oh, who am I thinking?
Oh,
I mean,
God.
Well, I mean, we played a lot of concerts in London for a charity called the Prince's Trust, which is Prince Charles's charity. So we had, you know, Phil Collins on drums, Elton on piano, me on bass, Paul McCartney playing. Wow. I saw her standing there with me behind him playing the bass. That was quite interesting. You know, Eric, you know, amazing. Tina Turner and then Jagger comes on with David Bowie at the end. So we all have to suddenly learn Dancing in the Street quickly because they wanted to sing it.
Right.
All these people. So these are moments that I try to sort of put it in the book, and it's slightly unreal when you think about it. But at the time, it was like, oh, so, you know, Jagger and Bowie are coming up. Oh, great, that's nice.
Yeah.
What do you mean that's nice? It's extraordinary, for Christ's sake.
Right.
One thing I'm wondering about in the book, and I honestly can't wait to get my hands on it after speaking with you today, is that one video, I Want My MTV. That was such a crazy music video.
Yeah.
And how did that come about? Like, was there a record company push for that? Was it the band's idea? Was there any like kind of internal problems with making a video that way?
Well, it was I think it was one of the first computer generated videos. So it was a massive experiment, and it was done by a director called Steve Barron, who was experimenting with all this stuff. And I think he approached us when he heard Money for Nothing.
Yeah.
And he said, "I'd really like to have a go at Bowie." And we were going, "Oh no, you know, we don't want to go down that path. We want to do something straightforward, you know." Right. And he said, "No, let me have a go. Anyway, I think it was probably one of the most expensive videos ever made at that particular time. completely freaked out the record company. But it was a sort of seminal moment, I think, in that sort of that particular time, because sorry, just something else popping. That's me. Money for Nothing was written in a shop in New York when Mark was trying to buy a fridge. Can you imagine Mark being in a shop buying a fridge? Anyway, he was at the, and MTV was on the screens, and so he wrote down all the things that those blokes in the store were saying. That ain't working. That's money for nothing. That
oh,
is,
interesting.
Yeah. So he wrote all that down, and then of course MTV came over to Europe, and just at the very moment that Brothers in Arms was being released with money for nothing in it, which was, of course, was a rather ironic view of MTV.
Yeah.
But despite that, it went on to heavy rotation, which of course created the situation that we found ourselves in, which was a year of complete madness.
Yeah.
Like that.
year.
See, that's kind of what I was wondering. Like, it was a computer generated video, and it played. Like, I grew up in Canada. I now live in the United States, but on Much Music in Canada, that video was on at least every 45 minutes, at least, if not more. And like every time it came on, I was like, I can't believe what I'm watching. What am I watching?
Yeah.
The lyrics were way over my head at the time because what year was that in?
1985. Yeah, it had to be 85.
Yeah, so I was like 9 years old. So the lyrics were way over my head at the time, but the video is just so captivating. I couldn't take my eyes off it.
Yeah, no, it was pretty cool. We were very pleased with that. And then, of course, Steve Barron did another one for Brothers in Arms as well, which was quite intense. I don't know whether you've seen that one, but that's
I'm sure I have.
Sort of shot in black and white, and it's very intense, with all the sort of the way it's been filmed and the images in it,
Right.
So it was a massive experiment for us, but sometimes they come off, and thankfully that one did.
Yeah, I imagine the record company was like, "You spent how much?"
No. You said, and you've got this. This is your bill. You can give it to the record companies.
Nice.
Those were the days when they would pay for things. They don't do that anymore.
No.
It's a bit
like,
difficult.
Do you have a record? Yes. Okay, we'll distribute it. Well, what does that even mean?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
But funny enough, I don't know whether it's happening in the States, but vinyl is taking having a massive time over here. We haven't got enough pressing plants to deal with the demand. It's quite extraordinary what's happening.
Funny.
The same over
Europe,
here too.
We at Europe are steps ahead of you with the new coming of the C cassette. So
the what?
It's totally happening. Yeah, like that's the biggest thing here. Like at least in Finland now, if you really, really want to be cool, you've got to do like a cassette version.
Oh wow!
Oh my god!
Whatever EP.
Wow. Okay.
That's happening in Canada too. I've seen it around.
I'm way out of line here. I don't understand what you're talking about.
The cassette tape, like just the C cassette, isn't that like universal? I'm losing my voice.
The old cassette tape from the early 80s.
Yeah, exactly. So not just the vinyls, but the cassettes also.
God.
Wow.
I'm sure I have like a cassette player somewhere in my basement still.
Well, what do they do? Are they making it out of the old tape version? I mean, this is getting into technology here. Are they using digital tape on it, or what are they doing with it?
No,
I think it's the old school. Yeah, it's the real deal. No digital.
Complete with Dolby noise reduction.
I never knew what that was. If somebody
no one does.
Does it sound better? And they said yes. Okay, I said fine.
That's all we need, right?
On those tapes, it was basically just a low pass filter to get rid of all that
hiss. Right.
Yeah.
I think you can guarantee that I'm not very technical, as you can probably imagine.
Well, your playing is.
That's very kind of you to say so. Let's put it this way: I used to keep it very simple, and that's what I do now. So
nice.
Anyway, we're running out of time here, John. I appreciate you taking the time so much. It's been a pleasure.
Oh yeah,
it's been great. Who are those guys behind? That's Kiss behind you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that one of your favorite bands?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Now, I mean, it used to be growing up, and then I've kind of drifted away a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I like the old school stuff. John, thank you for having a sense of humor and for joining us. I appreciate it so much.
Love it, man.
It's a pleasure. See you later, guys.
Be well, my friend.
Lovely
Take care.
meeting you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ever wonder what a punch from Elton John feels like?
Or how you'd cope with having turned down the chance to be in Nirvana?
Or what signal Keith Richards gives when he wants you to get the hell out of his hotel room?
Fans of Too Much Effing Perspective don't have to wonder, because they've heard these exact stories and a jillion others on our podcast. I'm Alex Hoffman, former tour manager for Radiohead.
And I'm musician and comedy writer Alan Keller. On the TMEP show, we get guests like Nancy Wilson from Heart, Jeremiah Freites from the Lumineers, and Modern Family's Julie Bowen to tell us things they may have only shared with their therapist, clergy, or a TMZ stringer.
So join us on Too Much Effing Perspective. That's EFFING Perspective. The only podcast you crank up to 11.